The Nomadic was a former White Star Line tender launched on the 25th of April 1911 in Belfast. It was built to carry passengers and mail to and from the Olympic and Titanic. It is the only surviving ship designed by Thomas Andrews, who also helped design these two ocean liners, and it is the last White Star Line ship in existence today. The ship has an overall length of 67 meters, a beam of 11 meters, and a gross registered tonnage of 1,273 tons. Propulsion was provided by two single-ended coal-fired boilers and two composite steam engines, each driving two 3-bladed 7-foot diameter propellers, giving an operating speed of 12 knots. The Nomadic vessel has a steel structure with a steel frame, beams, bulkheads, and riveted hull planking. It had 4 working decks with various holds below. When fully loaded, it could carry up to 1,000 passengers. Passenger accommodations consisted of passenger salons on the lower and upper decks, as well as open decks on the bridge and flybridge. The ship was divided into first and second class passenger areas, with first class passengers enjoying the bow of the ship. A small area aft of the lower deck was set aside for the transfer of third class passengers from the SS Traffic. Internally, Nomadic was equipped to the same standards as the Olympic and Titanic liners it was built to serve. As such, it had more luxury than most tenders of the time: soft benches, tables, porcelain fountains, mixed-gender bathrooms, and a buffet bar. It contained ornate decorative carpentry and moldings, especially in the ship's first-class saloons. Nomadic was built in the UK, but because she was operated in French coastal waters by a French crew, she had a number of features, such as imperial and metric drafts on opposite sides of the hull. Nomadic arrived in Cherbourg on the 3rd of June 1911 to begin her tender duties for the White Star Line. On April 10, 1912, she carried 274 passengers on the RMS Titanic on the liner's ill-fated maiden voyage, including New York millionaire John Jacob Astor IV with his new wife Madeline, Sir Cosmo Duff Gordon and his wife, the couturier Lucy, Lady Duff Gordon, American journalist and U.S. Army officer Archibald Butt, Denver millionaire Margaret Brown, and mining magnate Benjamin Guggenheim. During World War I and until 1919, Nomadic was requisitioned by the French government and served as an auxiliary minesweeper, as well as ferrying American troops to and from Brest Harbor. After the war, she returned to her tendering duties, but in 1927 she was sold and continued to tender under the ownership of the company Cherbourgeoise de Transbordement. Following the merger of the White Star and Cunard Line in 1934 and the opening of an expanded port at Cherbourg, which allowed liners to berth rather than anchor in the harbor, Nomadic was no longer needed and ceased its tendering duties. It was sold to the Société Cherbourgeoise de Sauvetage et de Remorquage and renamed Ingénieur Menard. During World War II, the engineer Menard returned to service. On June 18, 1940, it took part in the evacuation of Cherbourg. She was subsequently requisitioned by the Royal Navy and was based in Portsmouth Harbour where she operated as an accommodation ship. During the war, the port of Cherbourg was badly damaged, so large ocean liners could no longer enter there. The engineer Menard was rescued from the shipwreck and returned to tender duty for the SCSR from Cherbourg. It served ocean liners of the time such as the Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth. It finally retired from these duties on November 4, 1968. Ingénieur Menard was initially laid up at Cherbourg, but was transferred to Le Havre on the 26th of April 1969. It sat idle for 5 years until it was purchased by a private individual, Yvonne Vincent, which saved it from being scrapped again. Her name was changed again to Nomadic, and she was completely refitted as a floating restaurant and function vessel before being transferred to the Seine in Paris in October 1974. An image of Nomad was briefly seen next to the Titanic at Cherbourg in James Cameron's 1997 film Titanic. By 1999, the business was facing financial difficulties, and in 2002 Nomadic was seized by Paris port authorities. Authorities removed part of the Nomadic superstructure to tow it under bridges over the Seine. On April 1, 2002, it was towed from Paris to Le Havre. After Vincent's death in March 2005, authorities attempted to dispose of the vessel and attempted to find a buyer for the Nomadic. If a buyer was not found, it risked being sold for scrap. After learning of her fate, heritage and maritime enthusiasts, including the French Titanic Society, Belfast Industrial Heritage, Belfast Titanic Society, and Save the Nomads Appeal, began campaigns to raise funds to purchase the vessel. These campaigns received good public support, particularly in Northern Ireland, but failed to raise enough funds to cover Nomadic's reserve price. The campaigns, however, received political and government support, and on the 26th of January 2006, the Northern Ireland government's Department of Social Development bought the vessel at auction for €250,000. SS Nomadic left Le Havre to return to Belfast on the 12th of July 2006, arriving close to where she was built on the 18th of July 2006. The vessel was welcomed by the Minister for Social Development, David Hanson MP, and the Deputy Lord Mayor of Belfast City, Councillor Ruth Patterson, and a number of well-wishers. The Nomad arrived on a piglet on a sea transport barge, which was ordered by the department. In December 2006, the Northern Ireland Department of Social Development established the Nomadic Charitable Trust, which took over the management of the vessel and oversaw its conservation and restoration. NCT's stated purpose: to restore the SS Nomadic and make it available to the public, ensure that she can play a key role in the ongoing commemoration of the Titanic, provide a lasting legacy to celebrate our maritime and industrial heritage, and become a catalyst for tourism, social and economic development. In August 2008, Nomadic was reviewed by the National Historic Vessels and entered into the National Register of Historic Vessels as part of the National Historic Fleet. In August 2009, Nomadic was moved to Hamilton Graving Dock, Queen's Road, Belfast. This dry dock, which is itself part of the maritime heritage, has been partly refurbished as a result of a joint collaboration between the Belfast Harbour Commission and Titanic Quarter Limited. By the end of 2009, there were enough funds to begin large-scale conservation and restoration work. In February 2010, the main work began on cleaning the exterior and priming the steel hull. As of 2014, the boat has been structurally restored using the original paint job. In April 2015, the Nomadic Charitable Trust transferred ownership of Nomadic to the Titanic Foundation. The ship is now operated by Titanic Belfast Nomadic Limited and is included as part of the Titanic Belfast tourist attraction.